right, Benji Brady, welcome back in. We are episode 21, part 2 of
kind of a milestone. We just finished 20. Is that considered a milestone, Adam?
Well, it is. What we really want to get to is 100. They say less than like 10% of podcasters ever make it to 100 episodes. So we got a ways to go.
So if we do the math,
don't put a goal out there. We're going to try to hit it now.
That's 3 years from now.
I was going to say, we know how Brady is with goals, so if we put it in writing, it has to happen. So,
it's going to happen.
How about we get to 50 first?
Yeah.
How about we get to 30 first?
Yeah. Hey, look,
good
getting
idea.
to 20 has been awesome because it took Benji and I a while during season 1 to hit 10. So you were the missing element, Brady. You got us to
sure.
You got us to 20.
What can I say?
You know what? Tell our listeners to go back and listen. It's all the goal setting that we talked about.
Yeah. Matter of fact, Abundance versus Scarcity has had over 800 streams already.
Yeah.
Really?
It's the largest one so far. I want to tell you guys that, we say this on each episode, but thank you so much for listening. I was actually in Florida at a board meeting I'm on a foundation, nonprofit, and someone told me down there, they were like, "Hey, you have a podcast, don't you?" I was like, "Yeah." How'd you hear about it? He said, "This guy introduced me to it." And I was like, I've never met this guy before. So just thank you guys for listening. Appreciate you all tuning in each week, and comments we're getting on social and web and whatever. Just thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it.
It's funny. Think about it. What was it? 5 years ago, Brady, you recorded a podcast when we were doing some training videos when y'all were training other serve pros.
OTAV
and at the
CWAP.
time, at the OTAV CWAP, right? And I told you, I said, Brady, like, people love listening to your voice. You're a podcaster, and you're like, "No, I'm not." And then here you are. So
I'm still learning. Still learning. Got a long way to go.
Well, so guys, we're picking up. We got another 2-part episode. We did it before, but we get into talking. We get into some of these subjects, and they're great to kind of cover. But we're talking about financial purpose, leading with financial purpose.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we covered a pretty good amount of things last episode. We knew that we were kind of getting into that longer mark. So we said, hey, let's divide it into 2 more episodes. But you talked about some things. One that I loved that you talked about, was the tri-value model, right? And so you kind of went over those things with us, and, how you take care of people economically, how you take care of people with leadership, how you take care of people with spiritual. So talk a little bit more, just in case the listeners hopping in. Quick recap, and let's jump into part 2.
Yeah, so I think you led that well, Adam, just leading with financial purpose, because it does take action. We have to take action. So I just quick overview what we talked about last episode. We talked about the simplicity, making it simple, but also having it clear. And then once you have it simple and clear, we want to be intentional with what we're doing. So we talked about stewardship as leadership. So how are we stewarding things for God's kingdom? And we talked about the personal aspect of it. We talked about the business aspect of it. We did explore like some biblical foundations. I encourage you, go back and listen to some of the details there. But yeah, you're right. This whole C12 tri-value model, and we kind of broke down. We've talked about C12 a couple times, but it's 3 things. It's economic value add. So how are we adding economic value? How are we adding team value? And then how are we adding spiritual value? And it's really all 3 things. So if you look at it, it's a triangle, and all three of those things work together. But where we kind of started was, we have to start with our personal finances first. And we talked about that word that nobody likes called budget. They think it's a bad word. They think it's maybe a curse word or something. But at the core of it, once you really figure it out, it's not a restriction, or it's not a constriction. It's really freedom. It's freedom to be able to, because once you have the plan, and once you have it down on paper and it's in the box, if you will, then you've got freedom to do whatever you want to do inside that box. So what we did is we kind of outlined that. It gave you guys some resources. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but Dave Ramsey, Howard Dayton, these are guys that can help you with your personal budget stuff. We threw out a guy with a really weird last name, Mike Maklowitz, but he wrote a book called Profit First. And if you've never read that book, I'm talking about powerful in some of the concepts, not only with your business, but it's powerful with your personal stuff too. Then we talked about a guy named Greg Crabtree, wrote a book called Simple Numbers. If you don't want to go back to school and get an MBA, read this book, and it will give you a very broad overview of some things that may help. And then from a personal standpoint, how practically do we live out having a personal budget? There's a lot of tools out there, and we just introduced a tool called Tiller Money Foundations. It's a spreadsheet. I'm a spreadsheet guy.
That's an understatement.
Well, there's all kind of apps and stuff on the phone, but this is this really.
There's actually Dave Ramsey has free budgeting apps that you can use.
He does. Yeah. So they got stuff that works on your iPhone. They got stuff probably works on your Android. I don't know.
Probably on Android.
Probably, yeah. I was trying not to throw out the Android people because we may have some listening here. We love you guys.
They probably have Spotify too versus Apple Podcast. Obviously.
Well, there you go. But I'm just a spreadsheet person. So, but here was the kind of the two call to actions that we talked about. It doesn't really matter what you use as long as you use something that works for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You may be the type of person that takes out a legal pad and writes everything down. If that's you, bless you. Okay? That's not me. All right? But, if that's you, that's great. Find something that works for you. And then aligning your financial leadership with stewardship.
Yeah.
So aligning your financial leadership with stewardship. So that's kind of a recap, and it kind of gets us guys into today.
Yeah.
And what we want to try to do is, okay, take the foundations that we've already built on, and then how do we look at that into the future? And the way that we do that is through legacy. Mm-hmm. So we're building a foundation, and we're turning it into, okay, I heard somebody say one time, what's your 100-year plan? So if you think of 100 years, we're talking about generations of people that, your great, maybe more greats, grandchildren, what are they going to remember about what you're doing right now? And you've got an opportunity to kind of set that into motion. So what do you guys think about that?
I'll tell you one real quick, Adam, is, again, that foundation that I told you a part of. I'm part of the Isaacson Foundation. They have a ministry called Empower Ministry, and they obviously want to, exactly what you're talking about, leave a legacy of giving back to the future. What is the future of our, let's just say churches, of our ministries, or it could be any giving 501c3, does not matter, right? Whatever that looks like. There are currently sitting in donor-advised funds $2 trillion sitting there waiting to be spent, so people are giving, to your point. How do you leave a legacy? Financially, you have to have a profitable business, as you said, Brady. You have to have a profitable business so that when you do decide to sell your company one day or whatever, you have enough funds to be able to not only take care of you and your family and whatever that might look like, but also to be able to give towards the future.
Yeah. Well, I feel like any of our listeners that have never really met you guys or know you personally, they may not know just how often the two of y'all talk about legacy. From the first day that I've walked through the doors with you guys and known y'all, you always talk about what legacy are we leaving. It's been a very big selling point of what we do and who you are, and especially with what you're teaching your teams and teaching everybody, is just reminding them hey, what kind of legacy are you leaving behind? What are you doing? And whether that's financially or whether that's just through how you serve your community or how you raise your family, what legacy are you leaving? Because really, at the end of the day, sometimes that's all we have. What can you leave behind for someone? I think about that all the time, even with our own daughters, with how we handle things, how we respond to things. What are they learning right now that they're going to take on with their own kids, and like you said, passing down generation to generation.
Yep.
And so that's something to always think about, especially when it comes to financial stewardship. We're going through that right now with Addie, trying to get her to understand the value of a dollar. She's always like, Dad, let's go out to eat. Dad, let's do this. And Emily and I are like, Addison, that costs money. And so you have to understand these things so that way we can so we're trying to just navigate our way through that right now with, our youngest.
Well, Adam, to your point, people don't realize, we've talked about this before, the dash. One day when we pass, there's going to be that dash. What did you do with that dash on your tombstone? Yeah. And I think a lot of people, society today is obviously much different than it was 20 years ago. People are so involved in, I got to have this now. I want this now. Not I need this, I want this now.
Yeah.
And to Brady's point, going back to budgeting helps you figure that out to keep you in line, with exactly what you have coming in and what you have going out and what's left over, because what's left over is where the legacy comes into play.
Yeah. Well, and I'll share with y'all real quick. Oh, go ahead, Brady. I was going to say.
I was just going to say. Yeah. No. All I was going to say is, in Proverbs it says that a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And while we do think about that from a financial aspect, which I think a lot of times it is, but it's more than financial. It's like a mindset, and I think at the heart of it, and the heart of it is money, and that's where it starts, because it starts with, okay, what kind of mindset do we have, and then that leads to to so many different things.
Yeah. And a story, it kind of doesn't deal with financial, but we had back in Thanksgiving, Gracie had to color this crazy looking little turkey, right? And there was a competition at school. Like, they were sharing them on their Facebook page, whoever got the most shares, likes. She only could use like what she had, right? She only used what she had. We didn't go out and get anything extra. And that was kind of the challenge. Like, use what you have at home, use these things, take the sheet. If you just want to color. If you want to, take coloring, if you want to take paper that you find, or you want to take anything that you can do, design it, put it on there and use it. And that's all she did with that. And it was funny, during that same time, we were getting ready to go on a youth trip, and I rented all this equipment that I was like, man, I need this. This will make the trip better. Like, it'll make the video better. And what was funny is I shared with Emily, I was like, I went and we rented this equipment. We did all these things, and there's this camera that I really want to get that I think will just improve my quality or improve my work. And it was funny watching Gracie use what she had on that little coloring sheet. Made me realize,
so good.
Everything I have, I need. Like, I don't need the expensive camera. I don't need these pieces. And that's something I'm even trying to teach our young photographers at the church now. Like, guys, you don't need what culture's telling you. Like, oh, if you just have the newest camera with AI and all this stuff. I'm like, take what you have and create something with it.
Get good at it,
and see what you can do. It's the same thing with your financial. Use what you have right now. You don't need you don't need to put yourself into something more or have debt. And it was just funny. It was something so small as watching Gracie with a coloring sheet made me realize, I'm like, okay, I don't need that expensive camera. I don't need these things. I can create quality content that captures our church, that captures our youth doing what they do with what I already have. And I think that's even something, but like you said, Benji, just culture teaches us you need to have the next best thing. What is it? Keep it up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Having those
That's
things, right. and that doesn't always the case, especially with financial stewardship.
Well, Adam, I didn't know until just now that there was a camera out there with AI. So as soon as we get done with this episode, I'm gonna go look into it. But
definitely is.
Oh, there is.
Just kind of rounding out this one section on generosity is, think about this, okay? If you are a generous person, then generosity comes out of excess. All right? Mm-hmm. So think about excess in your own personal finances. Think about excess in your business finances. Profit, okay? So you can't be generous if you don't have a plan to be generous and have excess to be able to give. The only way that you can do that is to be able to plan your finances, which is what we talked about last time. But a lot of ways we do this. We talk about goals. We talk about targets. We were talking about that before we got on the show today. But set some generosity goals. I mean, if we set goals in other aspects of our life, set some generosity goals. Do you have more that you want to give to your local church body? Do you have other ministries or nonprofits that you want to give to? Do you have a legacy plan that when some things come to fruition, do you already have a plan of what to do? We haven't even talked about like estate planning or anything like that, but wills and trust and things like that. Is it already set up so that if something were to happen to you, that it's all in place and your family knows, what your legacy of giving is going to be. So, just some practical application there of just plan for generosity. And what that planning will do is that will help you go back to the last step that we talked about and help with that budgeting and get that foundation really set.
Yeah, there may be people on listening, they're like, well, I don't own a business. I don't need to listen to you. That's absolutely incorrect. You can do, like Adam said, with exactly what you have, where you're at right now, and still accomplish the same thing. Because if you're putting back for that, you've heard the old, saying, put back for a rainy day, then, hey, you've got the funds. If something happens, you're able to take care of it, and you can take care of your family, your significant other, whatever that may be, without there being an extra burden. Because like Dave Ramsey says, credit cards are for the birds. I know people use them for travel points and hotel points and all this other stuff. Yeah, as long as you pay the bill every month. That's the key.
Yeah.
You got to pay it off every month. You can't just keep continually having a credit problem. So use what you have where you're at, and don't overdo it. Use that budget to your advantage.
Yeah. Well, you said it. Everybody thinks budget's a bad word until it saves them, right?
That's right. That's right.
It's like you think about it, you're like, oh, we're not budget. I don't want to do that. And then the time comes when you need it, right? Like something happens you didn't account for. But if you hadn't budgeted and done those things, you're like, well, we'd be in a deeper hole if we hadn't done it. So I think everybody sees that as a negative until it saves them.
Yeah, for sure.
So, guys, just kind of as we wrap up this subject, just to recap some things that we've talked about, and this will be kind of a recap of both episodes, but, number one, stewardship involves managing God's resources with purpose and integrity. Mm-hmm. So you have to be purposeful in what you're doing. Secondly is simplicity and clarity create financial peace. Now, if you've ever listened to Dave Ramsey, he says those two words don't go together.
Yeah.
Financial peace. Financial peace. Those two words don't go together. But
I feel like I'm always stressing about money. Always.
Yeah. I mean, it's a real thing. I mean, especially in today's society when there's so many things. I mean, think about the consumerism and just all these things coming at you. If you're on Instagram or TikTok, which I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know how that one works.
Don't get started, Brady. Don't get started.
Okay. All right.
You go down a hole. Quick.
Almost created an account the other day. No, I'm just kidding. But we got these things that are coming at us, and if we don't have a budget, if we don't have a plan, then we might be tempted to say yes to something when we really should say no to it because we've already said yes to something else, which is in our budget. And then think about the C12 tri-value model, where the economic value, the team value, and then the spiritual value. And like Benji said, it doesn't necessarily. You may not own a business. That's okay. But in your own life or in your own circle of influence or circle of friends, are you able to provide that tri-value model to the people that are around you? So maybe just one thing to think about this week is as you're contemplating some of these principles of, specifically on the tri-value model, which one needs more of your focus in this next season of your life related to how you lead. And like I said, not just your business, but maybe in your personal life. Yeah. And then we talked about this, I think, on a couple episodes before, but take the time and write down some actionable steps. Like, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this week. Or this quarter, I'm really going to focus on, I'm going to get my personal budget in place. And, I've helped many people over the years even start that process. And the key there is just start. Yeah. Just start.
Yeah.
The first 30 days is going to be terrible.
That's the hardest thing to do is just start.
Just start. Yeah.
And that's with anything. I mean, not just financial. I mean, anything. The hardest step is just taking the first one. Because it's tough. And then once you get that rolling, I think you'll start seeing like, all right, well, we've done the first step. We've gotten past the awkward stage. Making that first step, and then you can build from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, guys, any final thoughts related to that? I mean, that's kind of a place to finish is to just start. But
yeah.
I mean, honestly, you said it right that, you got to start. Budgeting is the key, whether that's in your business, in your personal life, or whatever. Again, you've mentioned all the tools out there available.
Yeah.
Don't spend more than you have. Again, going back to the credit card model. And I think, for our listeners out there, Adam said it best. Brady said it best. Just start somewhere. You got to start.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, especially being in a different place than the two of you, y'all have a large business that you own. You have a lot of employees under. I'm not in that role, but I feel like for me and any of our listeners that may be where I'm at, take that tri-value model, and how can I present that with my family? Like, right? So, with Emily and I and the girls, how do we provide some economic value for the four of us, right?
Yeah.
How do I do that? Our team is not you can take that word and I feel like change it. It's not team value for us. It's family value. So
that's so good, Adam. Yep.
How can I take that with her and I, like I said, in this moment now where we're trying to teach the girls, especially now more than ever. I feel like my mom and dad did a really good job training us, but financial wasn't as big of a thing when I was kids as it is now, right? Where we're at. So I want to make sure.
Even if it was, they didn't talk about it.
Oh, no, 100%. So I want to make sure they're in that. And then also, how do we provide a spiritual for the girls as well? So that's something I was thinking through as you were talking about that, Brady. It's like, well, I'm not in a place where I have a business, and maybe there's somebody that's listening that's in that same place that we are. Okay, well, what is my circle of influence right now? Well, my circle of influence may not be employees, but it's our family, and to lead them with financial stewardship, so we can do that. So, but Lord, I took a ton. For me, being part of it took a ton from it, and think this will be good for us to kind of implement. We have our own system. Emily's great at finances. I mean, I've always joked she's like you, Brady, and she's our financial person. She helps keep us on track, and so I feel like this is a great for me to kind of take from these 2 episodes.
Well, Adam, if you need some personal coaching, I'll be glad to do that with you.
I get it from her. All the time. So she's coaching me plenty.
Well, as we wrap up the episode, guys, if listeners, if you want more information on C12, feel free to reach out to us. You can always Google C12, and there's a chapter near you. Maybe you can get plugged in there. We'd love to help be a resource for you there as well. We're going to put some show notes in with some links, maybe a budgeting plan or whatever to help you. At the end of the day, like we've said 100 times this episode, just start somewhere.
Yep.
But again, thank you guys so much for listening. We can't thank you enough. If you want to connect with us on Instagram, TikTok, so YouTube, all that. If you watch us on YouTube, thank you so much for watching us. But until next time, go out and choose to live a higher up life.
Thank you.